Hi, I'm Alix Paultre, and I'm here at the Things Convention with Johan Stokking with the Things Industries. Long time no see, Johan. How you doing?
Good to see you again. I'm doing really well. It's been 2 years and 8 months, and it's really, really nice to be back here with the real physical event. Yeah.
Not only are people missing each other, there's been new technologies developed, new solutions developed. People want to show them to each other.
Yeah, that. And also we see that people are a bit more selective with the events that they're going. And people have been really eager coming here, connecting finally again. And we all got older. I got married, I got a kid. I got spoken to a lot of people who also got kids in the meantime and everything. And, you know, new products, new kids. We got much older and more mature recently. Yeah, it's super nice.
Oh, but the other side of that coin is the industry has also grown, and the things ecosystem and the infrastructure, everything.
Yeah, and I think it's already an accomplishment that we're still here. And indeed, in the meantime, everything is growing really fast. I think this whole pandemic and being forced to work online, but also not being able to travel somewhere and to do your actual measurements also accelerated a lot of IoT growth. We saw a lot of customers that got into trouble business-wise when they, did fridge monitoring in restaurants, and the restaurants were forced to close. But on the other hand, we had the same companies that were monitoring fridges in restaurants that are now monitoring fridges with vaccines. And so it was really nice to see that adaptation in our customer base. I think everyone got out pretty well overall.
I agree with you completely. In fact, some of the people have been telling me, and I agree with them, that in one sense, COVID depressed the market, obviously, but in another sense, it fomented a lot of things like remote monitoring, remote work, remote everything, Internet of Things. It really accelerated some of that development, as you pointed out. If you can't go look at it, you got to monitor it.
Right, and still we want physical events, so that's really nice to see. Yeah.
No, that's people, right? Yeah. See, so the things can be alone. We're together.
yeah, exactly.
So now we're getting close to the end of day one.
Yeah.
We've had some really great keynotes. We've had some the wall of solutions, the wall of fame. A lot of people staring at that. There's been a lot of very interesting things. What are your general impressions from day one?
My general impressions are that we are seeing a lot of users here and solution providers and system integrators compared to a few years back when it was mostly device makers. And that's where it starts, right? People figuring out modules, radios, antennas. And there are still really good talks about antennas, and it's still a super important topic. But my biggest impression here today, as compared to previous editions, is that it's really focusing on actual use cases.
Now, Johan, when you think of use cases, are there any specific verticals that you see here highlighted, or is it pretty much across the board?
It's pretty much across the board. What I find impressive is that device makers are being more conscious about the lifetime of the device, and also using biodegradable materials. There's this LSys device that is completely made of biodegradable materials, for instance, which doesn't have a traditional battery. It has a solar panel to power itself, works also indoor. So there, I was like, okay, people are, if you have, time and resources for that level of innovation, then that also shows that you covered the base. You have already existing customers, your existing devices work, you're already providing value-added services. And then, you see these companies saying, okay, how can we do better? And they go into more sustainable solutions. That's really good to see.
Well, and it's interesting when you say sustainable portions of it. It makes all the sense in the world if I'm going to leave a package in the middle of nowhere, that if it's a biodegradable package, I don't have to worry about it.
For sure, because that's also the risk if you have these $10 devices that people are like, oh, but they are so cheap, they are disposable, right? That you could have that association with that price. So it's good. It's really good to see that. Yeah.
Now, having said that, and some of you're saying that you got some pretty even development across the application spaces. Do you see any application spaces that are lacking that say, hey, you should be part of this?
I think where we can still close a gap in the applications with the application space is really this low code, no code environment where people, not necessarily with a strong software engineering background, that's basically the audience that we used to address in the beginning. People who could do both embedded software engineering and cloud services, and they were capable of putting everything together. Now we more and more see business analysts that don't have a software engineering background, but still know how to apply rules and conditions and things and a model, a workflow with just a few mouse clicks. But they also need sensor data, and so that is where we see also room for us to bridge that gap and to integrate with those services.
Now, one of the other things that I'm seeing here, obviously, is the dynamic aspect of the community. And some communities have a little bit of passion like this, but this is a very passionate community. How much do you feel that the success of LoRa is because of its community support?
I think it's a foundation for us, at least as a company. It is a foundation. We started as all of you probably know, we started as a community network without a business model. And it started as a hobby, and we 6 months later, after we started the community network, we founded the Things Industries, a commercial company. But it was only later when we had customers asking for, they wanted to give us money basically for support, for SLA, and for services.
Pleasant surprise?
Yeah, pleasant surprise. But for us, it was always community first, and I think that's still really in our DNA. And we also see that from the community, it's a really nice environment, like a sandbox to tinker around and see if your solutions stick, if the devices work, if there is a market for it. And that is really a developer community that you need. And from there, maybe the conversion rate is only 5%, but it's still good enough, because after that, the scale comes. The first part is the hardest part, and that's really the developer community, and we nurture that. It's costly for us to operate a community network, but we think we found a good balance between the community network that we sponsor and at the same time that some of that converts to commercial use cases.
How do you see that community developing and growing into the future?
In the beginning, it was more about gateway owners expanding the coverage area of the community network. And we learned that the gateway coverage is not really a feature or valuable on its own, or coverage mapping was basically the only use case, that you look at how much coverage there is. And this is also what Helium showed, I think. We learned that it's so easy and cheap to deploy LoRa gateways for solutions that most of the community members are now deploying gateways because they have a use case in that area. And they share the gateway coverage with other users working on other solutions. So there has been sort of a shift from focus on gateway coverage to building solutions, and gateways are now secondary in there. So there has definitely been some development in the developer community on that. Yeah.
Well, that's always interesting when you think about the development, the dynamics, because the dynamics drive the development, right? Because if people aren't excited about it, they wouldn't want to jump into it. Now, having said all of that, where do you see it growing? Where do you see it developing? As far as expansion of the community, because when you think about it now, for example, Wi-Fi 6 is code compatible with LoRa, and we're seeing more of that kind of thing. Do you see LoRa becoming a fundamental part of the Internet of Things infrastructure?
I think so. We always thought that already. We thought that there was we believe there was always a very good and clear segment for LoRaWAN devices. But in the beginning, when we started in 2015, there was this whole promise of cellular, narrowband IoT, LTE-M, and the market was quite hesitant to embrace LoRa because they were also, okay, but is this the right technology? What is the technology 4 years from now, 5 years from now? And now we are 7 years from 2015 when we started, and look at the industry. There's still no narrowband IoT. There's still no LTE-M. Sigfox is dead. So, and LoRa and LoRaWAN is here and here to stay. We knew that already, of course, but it was a big bet also. But no, I still think that LoRa is a really crucial part in the stack for low power devices, and I think it's very much complementary to what you said, Wi-Fi and even cellular. I can really imagine that there are devices with multi-radio support that can do LoRa, can do narrowband IoT, maybe for other features, firmware updates or other things side by side. Yeah.
Well, I think I do agree with you, because a future electronic wireless device has got to be multimodal, multilingual, multi-protocol, and they're probably going to have to. One of those protocols are going to have to be LoRa.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
So now, having said that, are there any bottlenecks you see in the development curve, as it were, bumps in the road between where we want to be and where we are today?
I think we have had a lot of, we overcome a lot of struggles in the community as a whole, in the LoRa Alliance, with specifications, standards, certification. I think there are still a lot of dots on the I to put in the whole picture. When it comes to certification, especially, and certifying also network servers and giving that confidence to the industry that when they see the LoRaWAN brand, that they know it works and it's tested and verified. And that's something that we still, as a whole ecosystem, still have to work on. But I think if you look at what we have already accomplished in the past 5-6 years together with the entire ecosystem, I think we are already on the right track.
Well, standards and verification are critical, right? You have to have standards, and you have to be able to verify to those standards and certifications. How much more of a battle do you see before LoRa gets there?
So certification currently focuses on the correctness of one device, but our customers are deploying 50,000, 100,000, 150,000 devices at the same time in the same geographical area. And then you get the dynamics of many devices using the same spectrum, using the same gateways, and that brings a whole lot of new challenges. And that is not part of the certification program. For instance, just an example. So we have this feedback loop of when we see this increasing use of LoRa and LoRaWAN, that we see new problems that come with using LoRaWAN at scale. So we need to bring that back to the certification program. It's sort of an iterative process.
Well, it's iterative, right? Because you find issues, you and then you go ahead again.
Yeah, but the devices are already in the field, and they have been certified. There's these iterations are long. It's 2-3 years, oftentimes.
Well, then when I think about it, there are groups, obviously, right? There are boards and control groups and committees within the ecosystem. They're all working along. They've got a lot, industry partnerships. Can you tell me about these groups within? Yeah.
So the LoRa Alliance is the alliance with hundreds of members that are active in LoRaWAN space. It consists of device makers, gateway vendors, network server vendors like us, operators, also partly like us, even Amazon, Microsoft, so the public clouds are also there. So it's a whole alliance. And in the alliance, there are committees. And one of the committees that I'm actively contributing is the technical committee. And the technical committee authors the LoRaWAN specification, along with many other companion specs and recommendations. And I spend myself on average 1 day a week on telechats and meeting with the rest of the committee. And it's a really good high, lots of experience in that group. Competitors working together because we have the same interest of delivering a specification that can be certified and that also makes sense to device makers. And the challenging thing is that LoRaWAN is a horizontal technology, right? It can be used for agriculture, supply chain, smart buildings, everything. So there are many different, sometimes conflicting interests that have to be overcome also. But that challenge is nice, and that's a really healthy process. So I'm contributing to the LoRaWAN specification together with 10, 15 other active contributors, and that works really well. Yeah.
It sounds like it. I mean, well, when you think about that, right? Then you think about organizations like the IEEE. How much resonance are you getting with the regulatory people at the IEEE with what you're doing? In other words, are they going to start certifying and acknowledging your regulatory standards?
There is an association now between the LoRa Alliance and the ITU that is a standards organization more geared towards telecom standards that also embraced LoRaWAN as a specification and also gave it an ITU number. And that's also a sign to the market that it's sort of like a neutral, large, non-governmental international body is embracing LoRaWAN as a standard. Yet at the same time, unfortunately, the LoRa Alliance is also still sort of a marketing organization. And maybe in the future, the standards drafting work would fit better with institutes like IEEE or IATF. We'll have to see that. This also gives us, within the LoRa Alliance, a higher velocity because it's a smaller group. So we'll have to see. But there is increasing community and industry support and backing behind LoRaWAN. I can tell from experience that the specification drafting is a really professional process.
Very cool. Now, let's say I'm interested in the LoRa community. Can I just show up and say, hi, I'm here? Is there a process to apply? Are there any membership requirements? How do I get involved?
Yeah, everyone can become a member of the LoRa Alliance. They have different membership levels with different membership benefits. Institutional members, so universities have a free membership. There's a really low-cost membership and entry-level membership for startups. And then it gets more expensive. If you're Microsoft, you pay a little bit more. But that's healthy, that as with any alliance. And that gives you access to events, to working groups, and to work with other members on making sure that your interests are reflected by whatever the LoRa Alliance is publishing. And that could be specifications, recommendations, but also webinars and other marketing material.
Right, I was just about to ask you, what other events, what other things? I mean, obviously there's this, but what else can I get out of the organization?
So our event is completely officially unrelated to the LoRa Alliance. So we run our own event. The LoRa Alliance also organizes events around the world. I think the best advice I can give to people who want to be involved in LoRaWAN is visit one of those LoRaWAN events. Could be organized by the LoRa Alliance or one of the Things conferences. This event next year. Watch all the videos. Learn about LoRa and LoRaWAN, and connect with the rest of the ecosystem.
Very cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time, especially since you're one of the managers of this event and organization. It's been really cool having you.
Thanks.
The pleasure's mine.
Thanks.
And don't forget, we've got Luka Benovic from IRNAS coming in, and they're going to be talking about business aspects and IoT infrastructures.